Yo, what's up guys? Thug Life here. I'm starting a new video series where we're going to build a game in GameMaker from scratch. So the MetaBoy project has their second game jam coming up in mid-May, and I want to encourage everybody to come out regardless of experience. I don't care if you have no game dev experience or no coding experience. I want to show you in this video series that honestly anybody can do this. I started 6 months ago with no experience, and I've just been picking up bits and pieces every day, bit by bit. And I want to share what I've learned with you to get you up to speed and show you that truly anybody can do this. And I think if we get ahead of the game now, if you get up to speed on how GameMaker works, you can be really successful in the game jam. The prize pool is super fat. It's honestly like, I'm pumped about it. First place is going to be an iconic. Second place is an ordinal, and I think first, second, and third get Ethereum, and it's a pretty decent chunk of change. So definitely don't sleep on it. I think we had like 12 folks in the last game jam, and we're trying to triple that to about 36. So it's going to be super hype. I really can't wait to see everything that the community puts out. I want to play all the games, but I really want to help the folks that have no experience and want to join. I want to get you up and running. So stick with it. We'll get there. I'm also here to answer any questions. But with that, we're going to jump right into it. So we're going to end up with a game that looks kind of like this. This is like a prototype I had just laying around. For this video series, I don't know exactly what we're going to end up with. I'm just gonna kind of wing it. But you can kind of see my thought process and how I do things and how I get there. I'll admit I'm not like the most talented game dev out there. I've only been doing this for 6 months as a hobby. There's like thousands of pros who are way better than me, but I can at least show you what I know and how we can get something like this. So with that, let's jump right in. Alright, first thing you're going to do, go to GameMaker website, download GameMaker, open it up. We're going to start a new project, blank template. I'm going to call mine MetaBoy tutorial. Call yours whatever you want. Default location is probably fine, I wouldn't change that. And then you're going to get this blank template, and it's going to seem like overwhelming. Where's all this stuff? What am I doing? How did I get here? It's all good. I'm going to walk you through it. Over here on the right, we have our asset browser. This is where we're going to put all of our stuff. So first, let's delete a few of these. We don't need all these. They might have some use cases. I don't really use most of these, so I'm just going to get rid of them for this tutorial. So animation curves, particle system, paths, sequences, timelines. The rest of these are probably fine. The main ones I want to key on are sprites. This is where we're going to put all of our art. I put it in this folder. Of course, you can always reorder however you want, but I just use the default. It seems to be fine for smaller games. So all your art's going to go in sprites here. Sprites are just like pixel art. It's literally just art. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any code. It's just the art. Where we're going to bring that art to life is going to be in the objects. So the objects, we can assign a sprite, and then we can actually have it run code and do things. So I'll show you how to do that. Of course, we'll have like sound effects and music down here. Tile sets are good for like putting in the tile set art to build your levels. We'll explain this as we go. The last big one is going to be rooms, which your template will start with a default room. Your game has to have at least one room no matter what. But I like to work with multiple rooms, so we'll build more as we go. But this room is just a blank canvas. So you open it up, it's just like a black rectangle. It's got a default dimensions. Nothing in there right now, just blank. So I'm going to go up here, and I have all these options because I have the paid version of GameMaker, but if you have the free version, you probably only have like GX games and maybe Windows. So this is like what you're going to target to build and run your game on. So I think if you have free, you can do Windows. Leave the rest of these, you hit play. And yeah, you get a blank rectangle and your game is nothing. So that's where we're at right now. And that's okay. So yeah, up here is that run button. there's a stop button and a clean button, debug mode, save button, and there's all kinds of stuff up here in the menu. Don't need to worry about it right now. It'll all make sense as we go. But the first thing we got to do to make a game is let's get some MetaBoy characters in here to work with. So I'm going to import my favorite character, and I'll provide it in the assets. But if you want to work with your own character, I'll show you how right now. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's jump over to my favorite website for editing art, which is piskelapp.com, Piskel app.com. I am not a pixel artist. I am far from it. I like to do some editing and working with assets in here, but I am not an Otterman or an Endgame. Those guys are pros. I know enough to do some minor edits for game dev purposes. So Piskel, we're going to have our blank canvas. We're going to go to import, and we're going to open up our OG assets, and I'm going to import my MetaBoy 6969. So let's get those in there. His body is a lizard. I always resize to 100 by 100 because that'll give you like a true like 1 pixel. It's like the perfect size for editing these. So that's how you want to import it. So I'm just gonna go through right now, do his body. I'm gonna get his face, which is seducing white. And okay, so for these next layers, make sure you combine them. If you replace it, you'll lose this. So you want to do combine in existing frames, and it'll put his face perfectly over the body, and you have your different layers here now. So for his hat, he's got the helmet, 100 by 100, combine, existing frames, boom. And of course he's got the skull bandana mask. And then lastly, I'm a flamethrower collector, so he's got the flamethrower. One thing I did for my game, I'll just show you real quick. So he's got this flamethrower, but for my game, I don't want this on all the time, not to mention it's like cut off. So I did a little modification of the flamethrower, and I'll spare you the details of that, but yeah, basically I deleted all this, erased this, and then I made some edits to the gun. So it was like that, it's like not shooting. I did that for all 12 frames. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to do it for all 12 frames, but that's what I did. And I've got it saved in here as flamethrower modded. Alright, so as you can see, boom, there's my dude. Looks pretty good. I think he's got one like weird pixel right here I'm going to fix real quick. I guess I'm just going to merge all these layers. It's probably fine. Yeah, I'm just going to delete this. I don't know if that was intended or not. Alright, yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we can export as a GIF, and I'm just going to leave it at this resolution. You can change it, scale it, whatever. I'm just going to leave it here for now. And then also here you can change the frames per second, but this really doesn't matter because in GameMaker you can tweak it, mess with it anyway. So as far as GameMaker goes, it doesn't matter. Just do whatever FPS you want. Download your GIF and save it somewhere handy. So I'm going to put it in my tutorial under characters, which I already had one earlier. I'm just going to save over it. Name it 6969 run. Boom, golden. And then also for the sake of this video, I'll just show you. I won't do the art in here because I'll just embarrass myself. But I did create a version of my MetaBoy just standing, just for idle. So I just took the body, deleted the legs, and then like tried to redraw some new ones. So just so he's standing there. So I did that. I got it saved. So we. So alright, now that we have those, oh, and of course, yeah, be sure to export. Probably shows a .png. Save it somewhere. So back over to GameMaker. Now that we have those saved, we're going to go to our asset browser, and we're going to do create sprite. So first one, I got my run animation. I'm going to drop it in there. Say yes. Cool. And you can see he runs. It looks pretty cool. For my game, I'm going to change the size a little bit. I'm going to make this 200 by 200, which if you change it too much, it might distort it, but I think this is fine. You can also mess with this in Piskel and not in here if you'd rather. But that's fine for now. Also, it's really important. This is really important. Up here, the origin for your sprite. For my characters, I put it at middle center, so that when we're messing with the coordinate system and our code, it's from like the center of the body and not from like this top left corner, because that would be weird. Sometimes if you're working with like menu buttons, or I don't know, there's various times and cases to use these different ones, but like for my own player character, I just put it like right in the middle. It's easiest to work with. And then of course you can change your frames per second to speed up the animation, like stupid fast, or make it really slow. I think for MetaBoy characters, like 18 is a pretty good number for the run animation. I'm pretty happy with that. And then finally, we're going to set our hitbox, which this won't come into play in this video, but later it will, once you start taking damage and stuff. I go down to manual, and let's just like, I usually put it like inside the player's body, because it feels better as a player if you have like a little bit of wiggle room to work with. And then one thing to be conscious of is like this bottom part of the box, you don't want it up here, because then he'll be like cutting through the floor, so you want the bottom of the box like right at the bottom of his feet when he's like hitting the floor, so it'll look good while he's running. I think that hitbox looks pretty good right there for our player. So naming convention for my sprites, I always just put like a lowercase s so I know it's a sprite, and we'll just call it player run. Simple enough. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create another sprite. I'm going to call this one S player stand, or you call it idle, I guess. I don't know, stand, whatever. And now I'm going to take my other stand sprite, drop it in here. And this one, the frames don't matter, it's one frame, so you can just do whatever, doesn't matter. We want to make sure it's the exact same size and same hitbox as our other animation, otherwise when you're swapping between the two, it'll be weird. So I'm going to do 200 by 200 again for my size. Critical, origin is going to be middle center again, and my hitbox has to be the exact same size as my other one. If you have different hitboxes, like you don't want him to be getting hit with this box while he's not moving, and this one while he's moving, or maybe you do, I don't know, it depends on your game. For my games, my characters, I have the hitbox the same, like no matter what they're doing. So 7753, 7753, 125, 149. Alright, so I have my run animation, I have my stand, still image, Size, origin, hitbox. Alright, my art is good. So what do we do next? Now I'm going to make a player object up here, and for my nomenclature of objects I just use the lowercase o. So O player, I'll call it. We'll go to our sprites, and default doesn't matter. I guess we just use player run. Alright, so we have an object with a sprite attached. Cool. So now we can go back to our room. I will say, so right now we have like no code with this object. This is our event box. We'll put some code in here. Right now it's blank, but just stick with me here. So if we go back to our room, we have these layers, and we can drop objects on an instance layer, which we have a default one here. So let's just go ahead and drop them in here. Boom. Now if we hit the play button, alright, we have our object, which is tied to a sprite that we input. But as you can see right now, it doesn't do anything. I can't move it. It's just there. But that's a good start. So how do we bring this thing to life? How do we make it move? Let's go back to our object, and we're going to add some events. So for me, there's like 4 key events that I care about. And I add these to like every object, pretty much every object I make. There's a create, a step, there's also a draw. Draw event is really important, but I'm going to leave it out for now because we don't need it until we get into more advanced stuff. And then later we're really going to care about collisions. So like if you get hit by bullets or lasers or take damage or whatever, we'll care about that later, but for now we'll leave it off. So right now we just have a create and a step event. So the create event, this block of code will run one time when your object is created. So sometimes you enter a room and your objects are like already in there, and it'll run one time then. Or sometimes you have like bullets, so you shoot a gun and it creates an object. This code will run one time when the object's created, and that's it. The step event, on the other hand, runs every single frame, which right now, if you go into your game settings up here, general, the default I think is 60 frames per second. So every second your game is running 60 frames. So every second your code should be running this step event 60 times. It runs every single frame, constantly updating. That's basically how the game works. Is like it's every single frame it redraws the game on this canvas, so you can kind of see what's happening. All right, so how do we make this thing move? How do we bring it to life? So let's just start the step event here. Pretty much the way I do it, like for my characters, I have get inputs at the top, and this is where I get like what buttons were pressed or not pressed before I do anything. And I will say, if you go back to like add event, there's things like mouse events in here and keyboard events. I guess you can use these, and sometimes like for menu buttons I do. For like simple objects I think it's fine. For more complicated objects like a player character, which is going to have like a lot of mechanics and moving parts, I think it's easier just to put everything in your step event, just so you can have more control over like order of operations and that kind of thing. Now, I'm like not totally the expert, so others might have like other opinions on how to do this, but this is just my opinion. There's probably like 1,000 ways to skin this cat. But I really like just like operating within the step event, so I can like I feel like I have more control over like the order in which things happen. Alright, so let's just start by making him move left and right. So let's we're gonna use functions called keyboard check, and there's a few options here. Keyboard check just checks every frame to see that button's pressed. Keyboard check press only checks like the first frame at which is pressed and then not after that. and then released is obviously on release. I don't know what direct is, but check is going to check every frame, and we're going to say VK left. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here, VK right. Alright, so it's going to check our left and right keys. But right now it's like not assigned to a variable or anything, so I'm just going to make a variable called like move left equals keyboard check left, and then move right equals keyboard check right. Okay. So all this does right now is it checks if your left or right button was pressed, and it'll give it a 1 or a 0, but it doesn't do anything with that information. So it's just like checking to see if the buttons are pressed, but it won't actually do anything for your character. So how do we turn that into movement? We're gonna make this variable called like player move, and I'm just gonna call it move right minus move left. So that way, if move right is 1 and left is 0, it's going to be 1, he moves right. If left is 1 and right is 0, it'll be -1. And then if they're both pressed or neither, it'll be 0, and that doesn't move at all. And then, so there's built-in variables for the characters, one of which is just the coordinates. So like, we're going to say x equals x plus player move. So if you go back to our room, everything on here is like a coordinate system, and 0, 0 is up here in the top left corner. So yeah, with x is in the right direction here, so as you go right, x gets more positive. Down here in the bottom left corner, you can see the coordinates moving as I move my mouse. So x is positive in the right direction, and then what always throws me off, and I'm sure there's a way to change this in the settings, I just never figured it out and I was too lazy, but now I just deal with it. But by default, y is positive, y is positive in the down direction. So that's always like backwards in my brain, but now I'm just used to it. But just remember that when you're like doing your math and stuff, that y is positive as you go down. Something to keep in mind. But yeah, back to our code. There's for each object there's built-in variables, and one of the built-in variables is just x. So if you put x, it'll just get the x coordinate for the player. So at each frame we're going to say x equals the previous x coordinate plus, which direction you're moving the player. So let's hit play and see what happens here. Alright, so I'm going to hit right, I'm moving to the right, and hit left, I'm moving to the left. So it's kind of slow. Right now it's just a 1 or a -1, so it's moving like 1 pixel every frame to the right or the left. So let's see if we can speed that up. Let's give him like a speed. Let's just say, and actually I'm going to move this to the create event too. So here I'm just going to say like, I don't know, player speed equals 7. So that way this is set one time, it's not updating every frame, saves you a line of code, I guess. So that's set at the very start. And then we'll say this is going to be player move times player speed. So it's going to be -1, 1 or 0 times 7. So now we should be moving left or right 7 pixels every frame. So that's faster, that feels a bit better. So this is pretty good. We can kind of do the same thing here to get up and down movement. So we can do move up equals keyboard check VK up, move down equals keyboard check DK down, and then I'm going to change this. We're going to call this like H. Yeah, I'm just going to call this like H move. Changing variables here. Kind of just winging this. Call this like V move equals move. So this is going to be down minus move up, because remember when I said the y coordinate system is flipped, so when you go down in the y direction, that's positive. So that's why this seems like counterintuitive, but if move down is 1 and up is 0, you want v move to be 1, so you're moving down. And down here we'll say y equals y plus v move times player speed. Cool. So I guess one comment on here, like blue is like defined variables, orange is like functions, red is like built-in like game, I guess constants you'd call them, and then green is like object built-in variables. So just knowing those colors kind of helps you know what you're looking at within, you know, while you're coding. Alright, so we got up and down coded. Let's see what this looks like. Up, down, boom. We should be able to do them at the same time. So up and right, down and left. Yeah, it looks pretty good. The only thing is, when he stops, he's still running, and he never like turns left. Like when you go left, you should turn around. So let's take care of that real quick. I'm gonna call this. Alright, so we're going to say, let's work on switching between running and standing. So we're going to say, okay, so we're going to switch between running and standing, and we're just going to focus just on the horizontal direction right now. I'm not going to worry about the vertical direction, but we're going to say like if h move does not equal 0, this exclamation mark equals is does not equal, then sprite index equals s player run. And then we're going to say else sprite index equals s player stand. Okay, so basically if h move is not equal to 0, so if it's 1 or -1, doesn't matter, he's going to run. If horizontal move h move is 0, meaning he's not moving in the horizontal direction, he's just going to stand. Let's give this a shot. So he's not moving, he's standing, that's good. We're running. Alright, we're looking pretty good. Cool. Now finally, we want him to move, to flip when we're going left. Let's do that. So we're going to say if h move is greater than 0, then image index, no, image x scale equals 1. So that's like basically your default. Else if h move is less than 0, then image x scale equals -1. So basically we're going to, if horizontal movement is negative, meaning we're moving to the left, we're going to flip the image. And that is done. So notice that if h move equals 0, it doesn't execute either of these. Because if I'm moving to the left and stop, I want him to stay facing left. I don't want him to flip back. So if it's 0, it's just going to stay whatever it was last. So let's look at this again. Moving to the right, and now we move left, and we flip. Awesome. That looks pretty natural. I'm digging it. So I think this is a good stopping point for this first video. Just to recap, we got GameMaker downloaded and up and running. We were able to create a couple characters in Piskel, export those, and get them in here as sprites. So we got some playable characters. We were able to turn those characters into an object, which we could then drop in a room and move around a little bit. So really the things in this video are like the building blocks of making a game in GameMaker, as far as like importing art, assigning that art to an object, and then like adding code to it. You know, it gets a little bit more complex when you start talking like interactions and things you can do and planning out a bigger game, but these are like the building blocks. So I think in the next video we'll add a tile set that we can run and jump on. We'll get some jumping in there. Start working on some of that stuff. Maybe get some gravity. So yeah, this is a good start though. And I'm looking forward to making more videos and looking forward to the game jam and having you all there. So appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you later.